Hello viewers, today I am going to discuss about one of the most common symptoms that many of you suffer from, namely headache. Headache has so many causes concerning so many specialists. One of the commonest causes of headache is refractory error, that is you have visual disturbances because of which your eye keeps straining resulting in headache. It's more in school going children, people who are in front of the computers for a long period of time, and now everyone is hooked on to their mobile phones, resulting in excessive eye strain, thereby resulting in headache. The other causes are sinusitis. If you are someone who's prone for sinusitis, you can also have headache because of the sinusitis. Some common medical disorders like thyroid, fluctuations in sugars in diabetic patients, high BP, all these are some of the other causes of headache. Or if you are having an underlying depression or anxiety disorder, headache is one of the most common symptoms that you will have. Now coming to a headache that can be because of a neurological cause. Majority of a neurology OPD consists of patients suffering from migraine. Some of the other neurological causes of headache can be tension headache, benign intracranial hypertension. Some of the red flag signs that you need to remember when you have a headache are an associated vomiting. By red flag signs I mean it is an alarming headache, you need to present to a physician immediately. If the headache is associated with vomiting and if it's the worst headache of your life, you have an associated loss of consciousness, you have fits associated with the headache, all of a sudden you have weakness of your limbs associated with a headache, then you have to present to the emergency if your headache is accompanying these symptoms. Now coming back to migraine. What is migraine? Migraine has many etiological factors. It only revolves around theories. There is no exact reason leading on to migraine. Now migraine comes in steps. First it starts with a prodromal symptom. The patient feels tired, keeps yawning repeatedly, feels sluggish, they might be irritable, they can have mood fluctuations. Followed by this, there is a phenomenon called aura. Some patients may have it, some patients may not have it. Aura involves zigzag black lines that the patient can see through their eye, bright eye flashes, numbness or tingling involving the mouth or the limbs, some speech abnormalities or speech arrest, motor weakness of the limbs, inability to lift a limb. These are some of the symptoms that come under the class of aura, but then not every patient may suffer from this. Following the aura, the headache starts. It can either be, famously migraine is known to cause one-sided headache, but it may also involve both the sides. And again the one-sided headache may not be always on the right side. It can be the sides can also keep alternating, can sometimes be a right-sided headache, sometimes be a left-sided headache. The headache can last anywhere between half an hour to 72 hours. Following the headache, there is again a post-dromal phase wherein patient feels extremely sluggish and tired. So this is how a classic migraine presents. Not all patients exactly present the same way, but this is how a classical migraine sounds like. Now when you suffer from migraine, it's advisable to consult a neurophysician. Your doctor might go through your history and do a clinical evaluation. Sometimes using an instrument, they can examine your eye and look at your optic nerves. They are the nerves supplying the eye to see whether they are swollen, thereby indirectly giving us a picture of the brain pressure. Now if all that is normal, after the clinical evaluation and history, they conclude, your neurophysician concludes that you are suffering from migraine headache, then there are two kinds of treatment. One is an abortive treatment, the other one is a preventive treatment. Abortive treatment is you take medication, your headache subsides. Preventive treatment is if you keep having headache in increasing frequency, then we would put you on a course of drugs for say 1 month, 3 months or 6 months so that you don't end up having headache, meaning we are trying to prevent your headache, try to decrease the frequency and severity of your headache. That is preventive treatment. Abortive treatment is when you have headache, you take the medication, you get relief. So this is how we deal with migraine. I would also like to touch upon benign intracranial hypertension or idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Don't get worried about the complex name. It is nothing but without any reason the brain pressure becomes high, thereby causing headache. As I already told you, the neurophysician might examine your eye and look at the optic nerves to see whether they are swollen or not. In idiopathic intracranial hypertension, your optic nerves are swollen, following which we will make the patient undergo an MRI brain scan, which might also support the diagnosis of an idiopathic intracranial hypertension. After this, there is something called a CSF opening pressure, wherein we put in a small needle into the fluid space that surrounds the spinal cord and look at the pressure to see whether it is high. All these may sound complicated and scary, but they are so not that. It is an easily done procedure. You might not have very many side effects because of this. And once the opening pressure is also high, the headache management of idiopathic intracranial hypertension is little different from all the other headaches. And this requires a specific drug that can result in lowering the brain pressure. Majority of the patients respond to a drug which we ask the patient to continue for a period of 6 months and periodically keep looking at your optic nerves and see whether the swollen optic nerve gradually comes back to normal. In case the patient does not respond to the medication, then there are procedures like a VP shunt, ventriculoperitoneal shunt, done by the neurosurgeons, wherein we will try and drain the brain fluid into the abdomen. As I said once again, though they all might sound scary, these are all easily available treatments which the patients can avail and end up treating their headache in a successful manner. Commonest causes of headache are anxiety and depression. Now, in this fast-paced world with deadlines in the office, majority of the patients are stressed at work. Many women, not only women, even men, cannot balance their family life and their work life, and they end up taking increased amount of stress. Adding on to all this are financial issues that every patient undergoes, because of which they become extremely stressed and end up having depression or anxiety issues. Now, because of this depression or anxiety, they may not always present with mood disturbances. Instead, they may present with vague pains, and one of the most common symptoms is headache in them. You put them on antidepressants or anti-anxiety agents and also some painkillers and tell them how to cope up with this increasing stress. They do wonderfully well. And the other common thing that can cause headache is high BP, which many of the patients don't realize or don't give importance to. All you have to do is put yourself on antihypertensive medication, take your medication properly, don't skip your medication, keep monitoring your BP, thereby you can get relief from headache easily. And moving on to the other scary causes of headache can be a brain tumor. As I told you, such scary causes of headache always comes up with red flag signs. So, as I already said, if your headache is accompanied by all these red flag signs, then do not delay and present to a hospital emergency whereby your physician or neurosurgeon can image your brain and see whether you have a tumor or an abnormality in your brain vessels, or even a hemorrhagic stroke, a bleeding inside the brain, or there is something called subarachnoid hemorrhage, wherein there is bleeding inside the spaces in the brain, these patients always tell us that they ended up with the worst headache in their life. So, these are some of the scary causes of headache. Nevertheless, there are treatment options for all these kind of neurological disorders. Though headache may sound simple, the causes of headache are highly varied and the treatment options are also varied but easily available. One more thing that I would like to insist at this juncture is majority of the patients do not end up in the doctor's office for their headache. They try and get over the counter drugs and keep treating their headache with those medications and delay their diagnosis as well as the right treatment for the headache. Sometimes they end up having side effects because of these over the counter drugs, resulting in kidney damage. So, I advise the patients to always consult a doctor or a neurophysician to address their headache issues. Moving on to the next topic, another common things that all patients suffer from, one of the commonest symptoms that again make up most of a neurologist's OPD is giddiness slash vertigo. First, I will start with what is the difference between a vertigo and giddiness. Giddiness is you feel a spinning sensation inside your head. Vertigo is you have the sensation wherein the room revolves around you. That is the subtle difference between a vertigo and giddiness. Now again the causes are so many. One can be high BP can cause giddiness as well as low BP, high blood sugars or low blood sugars, hormonal disturbances, again dyslipidemia, abnormal cholesterol levels. These are all some of the medical conditions that can cause giddiness. Now coming to neurological causes of vertigo or giddiness is a posterior circulation stroke, which is nothing but there is a blood clot in the blood vessels supplying the posterior part of the brain. That is what we call the posterior circulation stroke. Now the posterior part of the brain consists of the brain stem. So when there is a compromised blood supply to this area, one of the commonest symptoms that these patients present with is giddiness or vertigo. Sometimes the posterior circulation stroke is diagnosed late only because they do not present with dramatic complaints like the anterior circulation stroke. But some of the accompanying symptoms in a posterior circulation stroke can be weakness of the limbs, numbness of the limbs, double vision, swallowing difficulty, nasal regurgitation wherein when you drink water the water comes out of your nose, imbalance issues, swaying towards a side, all these are some of the accompanying symptoms. Now vertigo can also be because of an inner ear pathology. So inner ear disorders can present with vertigo. Associated complaints in that can be hard of hearing or a hearing loss or tinnitus. Tinnitus is nothing but ringing sensation in your ears. But one of the commonest causes is positional vertigo. This is actually a self-limiting condition. It comes all of a sudden, stays for some time and goes off by itself. Positional vertigo means we have a few organs in the inner ear called the semicircular canals, the utricle and the saccule, which always keep giving signals to the brain as to with regards to the position of the head, the body with respect to the environment. Now when those signals do not reach the brain properly, your brain is confused. That is when you end up having a positional vertigo. The other cause could be a cerebral spondylosis resulting in again compromised blood supply to the posterior part of the brain, because the artery that reaches the brain goes via the vertebrae, which are nothing but the bones at the back of your neck. Having dealt with the causes, let us see how we manage each cause. Now when it comes to blood pressure and sugar, again it's simple. Treat your blood pressure and make sure it's not too high nor is it too low. Same way, your blood sugars shouldn't be too high nor should they be too low. In case of hormonal disturbances, through lab tests we can detect that and get them treated. For example, if you have low secretion of thyroid hormones resulting in a giddiness, you can take tablets for the same, thereby correcting it. Again, cholesterol correction can also allay the giddiness. Now coming to the posterior circulation stroke, again I had discussed about stroke in one of the previous episodes. It's the same way. Management of the posterior circulation stroke within a time window period will be with thrombolysis and mechanical thrombectomy. Outside the time window period, it will be conservative management. Now how to manage a positional vertigo? So we start the patient on something called labyrinthine sedatives, which kind of calm down the labyrinthine apparatus and make sure that the signals are smooth to the brain. We also put the patient on vestibular rehabilitation exercises. So the plan is to start the patient on these rehabilitation exercises and slowly taper them off the medication. Try and avoid sudden neck postures, avoid sudden neck movements, because these patients will typically give complaints that when I get up from a sitting position, I have that brief vertigo, or when I lie down in one particular position, I have that brief vertigo. So it's basically positional. We try and avoid the position that precipitates the vertigo. Along with that, we also give them medications and vestibular rehabilitation exercises. Now in spite of all this, if the patient keeps on having this kind of positional vertigo, we refer them to an ENT surgeon who does a few maneuver. It's a bedside positional neck procedure called the Epley's maneuver, which actually aligns the labyrinthine apparatus in such a way that again the signals to the brain are uninterrupted, thereby your vertigo gets corrected. Usually patients with vertigo, when they have it, they have an associated vomiting and also an imbalance. The sensation is so tiring for the patient that sometimes when they present to the emergency, they just want to lie down for prolonged periods of time so that the abnormal sensation goes off. Now another complaint that's related to vertigo but not exactly vertigo is an imbalance while walking. Now imbalance while walking can be a part of vertigo and can be because of the causes that I had already discussed, but sometimes they can also be because the nerves are involved. There might be some disorders affecting the peripheral nerves. Usually the peripheral nerves take the signals from the extremities, meaning from our upper limb, from our lower limb. The nerves take the signals, from there they enter the spinal cord and go into the brain. Thereby the nerves are the messengers to the brain saying where our limb is at this particular point of time. Am I touching a hot substance or a cold substance? Am I feeling pain? Am I feeling the floor? These kind of answers are usually conveyed by the peripheral nerves to the brain. So in case of a peripheral nerve pathology, the nerves are unable to transmit the signals to the brain. So again, your brain is confused and it doesn't know where the floor is, thereby resulting in an imbalance. These patients typically say that they feel like swaying while walking. When they are washing their face, they feel that they are about to fall down. Maneuvering at night, especially when they wake up for passing urine in the night, it becomes difficult for them. These are some of the complaints that they end up with. They may also say that they feel reduced sensation, commonly known as numbness in the feet, in the hands, in the legs or in the arms. So in case of peripheral nerve pathology also, patients can have imbalance, commonly called as sensory ataxia. Then we do something called a nerve conduction study to find out whether the nerves are involved or not. That is the first step. followed by which we find out what are the causes that could have caused these nerves to become abnormal. Could it be diabetes? Could it be some connective tissue disorder? Could it be a spinal cord disorder which had resulted in this, or could it be a vitamin deficiency? So, we do a couple of investigations after the nerve conduction test to find out what was the reason as to why these nerves got affected. Now, in case of an associated pain because of the peripheral nerve disorder, so the imbalance gets corrected only if you find out what is the cause and treat the cause. We cannot treat the imbalance or the numbness directly. But if the peripheral nerve disorder has presented with pain or abnormal sensation in the feet or in the hands, that can be easily dealt with by medication. Finally, vertebrobasilar insufficiency secondary to cervical spondylosis, which just means that because of cervical spondylosis, because of the alteration in the anatomy of the vertebra in the neck, the blood supply gets interrupted, because of which again there is vertigo or giddiness. In such cases, we put the patient on medications to reduce the neck muscle spasm. We give them adequate pain relief in case of the cervical spondylosis. We also put them on cervical neck exercises, which are again physiotherapy exercises. The plan is to maintain them on cervical physiotherapy exercises and come down on the medication. Sometimes the symptoms may persist in spite of all these things. That is when we do an MRI imaging of the spine, and if at all there is a bony pathology or a disc pathology or the blood vessel is getting interrupted because of the bony pathology, we see whether any procedures or a surgery should be attempted to give adequate relief. But majority of the time, conservative management with medications, physiotherapy, neck posture maintenance, a cervical collar or usage of a cervical pillow will give good relief to the patient. So, coming to a quick recap, we started with headache, the red flag signs associated with headache, commonest causes of headache like migraine, benign intracranial hypertension, followed by which we went into vertigo or giddiness, the numerous causes of them, how to deal with them, and finally a peripheral nerve pathology which can mimic like a vertigo, giddiness or imbalance, but totally a different pathology altogether. I hope whatever I spoke is of help to you. Thank you.